Ladies and gentlemen, most of Ukraine is in the dark. It gets very cold there in the winter. So, according to the officials there, the power grid has taken some heavy damage, and it's due to heavy airstrikes from the Russians. So, wow, they're saying well over 1.4 million Ukrainian households have lost electricity a morning after a repeat of Russian airstrikes. This is according to the president, Zelensky. So they said the Ukrainian general staff reported 40 cruise missiles and 16 allegedly Iranian made drones hit Ukraine throughout the day. So I have some audio here from NPR I'm going to have you listen to.
Nearly 1.5 million Ukrainian households lost their electricity this morning in what the National Power Utility says is a new record for single day damage. From Kyiv, NPR's Yulian Haida reports on what this has to do with the direction of the war. I'm standing outside on the patio here at NPR's office in Kyiv, and if it weren't so cloudy, I'd be able to see the stars. It is totally dark here. In a city of 3 million people, candles flicker in the windows and streetlights are dimmed to conserve power. It's been like this for nearly 2 weeks. This, for the most part, is voluntary and nationwide. If you go down, it means someone else also have electricity, maybe not so much, but still could use. That's Alexander Kharchenko, a leading Ukrainian energy expert. He says the voluntary rationing has worked. Hospitals, for the most part, have power. Public transit and phone signals work. But after today's strikes on energy infrastructure in 7 of Ukraine's 25 regions, the government wants people to do even more or risk going without electricity for upwards of 10 hours a day, especially in central and western regions that have been relatively quiet for months. For Kharchenko, that proves how dependent Ukrainians are on stable power for essential civilian services, especially ahead of winter. Water channels to heating station, wastewater treatment, and when you have no electricity, it's really huge trouble. Kharchenko says he's noticed a shift on the Russian side. Instead of going after large power plants, which are surrounded by air defense batteries, the strikes target smaller relay stations. There are hundreds of them, and it can cause a domino effect of power outages in an entire region. Officials here say they're fighting two wars: an air war to protect cities from rockets and drones, and a land war against Russia in the east and the south. Oleg Zhdanov, a top Ukrainian military analyst, says that today's strikes were a direct response to Russia quickly losing ground near the key southern city of Kherson. Occupational authorities announced a mandatory evacuation of Kherson this afternoon in a bid to fortify the city from Ukraine's counteroffensive. Zhdanov says if Ukrainians in the rest of the country go cold and hungry, that pressures Ukraine to back off Kherson, giving Russia the opportunity to double down and fight into the new year. Yulian Haida, NPR News, Kyiv.
As soon as I heard the power was out, that's exactly what's going to occur. If these folks have gone over 2 weeks and they're struggling with power because of all the damage from the Russian rockets, then you are looking at a hunger situation when winter get here. It probably is already here with all the warring that's been going on so far all year, practically. I mean, this war jumped off in February, and we're at the very end of October. So, yeah, you can best believe if there's no power, there is going to be hunger. And there's going to be a lot of people dying from the cold. Now, if you remember in the beginning of the war, when Russia went in there, they shut the power off, and people were cooking outside and trying to keep themselves warm by lighting up some trash cans, for fire and stuff. I- It's going to be a long winter, and Ukraine is not a warm, balmy place in the winter. It's quite cold, you know? And I know some people were saying, maybe the fighting will slow down with the winter coming, but you got to understand the Russians, they know what war is in the winter. I really don't think this is going to slow down at all. I think it's going to continue on during the winter, and the folks that are still there, they better prepare for how they're going to make it without electricity and heat in the dead of winter, because that's coming. It already happened in the beginning of the year. And if you think it's not going to happen now that we're at this point in time in this war, yeah, it's going to be even worse. So they're saying, it's going to be a record cold winter, even over in Europe, not just here in the US, but in Europe as well. So, I mean, I'm going to keep watching this war just to see what happens. But, it's American propaganda. Oh, they're losing this, and, the Russians are losing ground. They've been saying that from the beginning, and look at how much territory Ukraine has lost after the annexation. They sure didn't get it back. And that's the bottom line. So, you got to kind of take what America says with a grain of salt, because they are very biased in this whole thing. America is funding the war. I think it's safe to say that by now. But y'all, please tell me what you think about this story. Periodically I will do these stories on Ukraine. Maybe not as much as I did in the beginning when the war was still pretty new um, to everyone. But here and there, it don't hurt to pop in just to see what's going on. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.